generation have to step up and say, what is the change that we seek to bring? What is that moment of unity? And what is that unity of courage and unity of purpose? It bears no repeating the fact that our towns and cities are broken. Ultimately, citizens are fast becoming frustrated with the political system that seems to leave them behind. They know deep down in their hearts that South Africa isn't heading in the right direction. They believe and they hear that there are too many empty promises. And they fear that there isn't a plan to be able to take them to a nation that prospers and cities that are able to deliver for them. And I think in any country, there is a moment where the dictum of liberation politics hits an expiry date. That we begin afresh and we say, what future do we all desire? What country do we want to live in? Are we just simply content to survive, or are we ready to build, to unite, and to bring about change? In truth, we are the ones we've been waiting for. And in this moment, in this time, I believe the time has come for all of us as South Africans to stand together and unite for change. Amandla. Surely, we cannot be judged for only what we've overcome. But we need to come to a point where we say, what is our shared tomorrow? If our benchmark is simply that we transition from apartheid and miss that opportunity that you so eloquently called us to, what is the shared future? What is our tomorrow? How do we enhance democracy? We run the risk of reversing the very gains that we've made. And worse, handing over a legacy to our kids. That is not one we desire. 2026 will be one of the most significant turning points in our democracy. And I believe our nation will need change in two ways. Firstly, it must be governed differently. And secondly, it must be governed by different people. On the first, it must be able to deliver services, build an economy that works, and ultimately elect leaders who are ethical and create systems that are governing for ethical purposes. Secondly, it must be governed by different people. And so today I open an invitation as we sit here together, not to one party, not just to one ideology, but to all South Africans who believe this country can be greater, more capable, more inclusive. This is an open invitation. This is for all of us. This is this moment. We must today unite not only to bring power to the people, but to make sure that the people can use the power not only to liberate themselves, but to ensure that they can bring services to their community. I want to invite citizens who want to serve, not rule. I want to invite businesses who no longer want to sit on the sidelines and watch when the lights are off and the water isn't flowing, to say now is your time to participate. I want to invite civil society organizations and formations, faith-based professionals, to say we've got to fold up our arms and say South Africa belongs to all of us and we need to put our hands together to focus on the future of this country. It is that unity of purpose that brings about change. And so it's been a great privilege to work with both Patricia Songezo and many other leaders to say this journey must culminate together. We must work together. And there are many others that we are currently engaged with. And there are many others that still must come forward. Because when we do that, we demonstrate to the people that politics is far too important to be left up to politicians. That we build a new coalition, not of politicians, but of patriots of this country. Not just of parties, but of a true vision of principles. South Africa does not suffer a shortage of parties. I think there are many. What it suffers from is honest capability and people who are willing to gather. So for practical purposes, next year's elections, whilst the parties remain, they remain in parliament and they remain in legislatures. Next year there will be one voice on the ballot paper, and I'm inviting people to come through in order to be able to work for Unite for Change. The candidates will contest, as one has been clearly. It is ultimately a process of saying, less about shouting. As Vuiswa has said, there will be a very clear process of how candidates are selected. We want the best. Not those who are hopscotching backwards and forwards. We want the best. Let's bring the best. So we have the best mayoral candidates, the best candidates, and those people exist. They are rooted in communities. They sometimes are often put off by the idea of politics. And I'm here to say to you, this is the time now to stand up for your country, for your city, for your community at this time. Because as I close, when I entered politics, it became quite clear to me that we need to do more. That we can't just keep liberation narratives. I know there's a moment now. The system is broken. The people must be their own liberators. And so I again want to reaffirm, let's stand together. Let's put forward leaders who are untainted by corruption. Let's build capable local governments rooted in values. And I truly believe when we offer this platform, we offer a pathway where the power lies with the people. We are coming together, setting aside egos, all of those issues, to say, let us make sure South Africa prospers. Let us make sure Joburg, Ekurhuleni, Tshwane, Cape Town, metros come together and they prosper. Now is the time we bring the people. And therefore it's personal, but it's also collective, that all of us put up our hands and we stand up together. We bring South Africans together. We unite at a moment such as this one, when globally politics are dividing. We can stand up and put up a flag and say, when we are united, we can bring change that ultimately means our cities are governed for the better and for the future of our people. Ke a leboga enkosi.
Thank you very much, Dr. Maimane. I now call on the leader of Good and also the leader of Unite for Change, Minister Patricia de Lille.
Thank you for my new name. Good morning, South Africans. Goeiemiddag. I'm still growing. Thank you. Good morning, South Africans. Goeiemiddag, Dumelang, Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for affording us this opportunity to engage with you. I also want to greet my fellow leaders here. And I would like to speak about governance and service delivery, because they are interdependent and they also give government legitimacy. As I had the honor of serving as a mayor, as an MEC, and our minister, I bring that experience that the challenges are different for all three spheres of government. But of the three, local government is arguably the most important to get right. Because that is where government interact the closest with the people. We know that South Africa's towns and cities are grappling with pressures and opportunities of a rapid urbanization. We know already 67% of the people in South Africa live in cities. We also know that by 2050, more than 80% of people will live in cities. Because cities and towns are regarded increasingly as opportunities. People go there for opportunities. And therefore, we must prepare so that we make sure that we prepare the cities for this growth that has already taken place. Because cities and towns are the drivers of change in any country. Those of us who are coming together as Unite for Change, we understand that local governments must act with urgency and must be prepared must be prepared for the rapid urbanization. So therefore, in government, we have to be innovative in building local economies that will meet this rapid moment. So in Unite for Change, we will grow the economies of the cities. Our towns and cities must embrace the tourism economy, the creative economy, the care economy, the digital economy, the climate economy. Those are all drivers of change. But we will not neglect infrastructure. Because infrastructure is also a driver of change. We will nurture and the job creation benefits, and we will ensure that we look after the infrastructure of our country and of our cities. Here in the city of Johannesburg, they've got a total budget of 89 billion rand, of which 8.7 billion rand is allocated to infrastructure. But what is currently happening here? We see the failure of the water services, the crumbling built environment. And what also is illustrating is that the budgets are not used proactively for maintenance. You have to maintain that old infrastructure that were built 50, 60 years ago. You need to know the lifespan of every piece of infrastructure. But more so, you need to maintain infrastructure. So we must aim to ensure that we, in any budget, that we at least invest 40% of our infrastructure budget into maintenance. And the other 60% we can invest in new infrastructure. And then you will get the crowding in effect by the private sector. But what is making it even more difficult? It's corruption. South Africans have become sick and tired of corruption. We are sick and tired of the looting, of the greed. People are just stealing. They are looting our country. And we know that South Africans are sick and tired of the stealing. So government must act on corruption with urgency. But what do we see in South Africa? Government always reacts after the event, after they've stolen 2 billion rand, after Babita has been killed, after many whistleblowers has been victimized. We must put systems in place in government. And we must use those money that we spend on commission after commission, after the event. We must use that money to invest in systems in our government at all 3 spheres of government, because they steal everywhere. To put systems in place that we can detect and prevent corruption. Don't just always act after it. You know, as the mayor of the city of Cape Town, I had to manage the investment versus redress and making sure that we prioritize services to the poor. A government that obtains clean audits. I received 4 clean audits as the mayor of the city of Cape Town. A clean audit is a moral obligation. You shouldn't be praising a fish because that fish can swim. And then brag about clean audits. Because also, we need to balance clean audits with measuring the impact and the outcomes of what we invest in our poorer communities. After 30 years of our democracy, every Every government must have front and central on their agenda and their programs and their project the issue of redress. We have not redressed the imbalances of the past. Now, South Africa is not a poor country. South Africa is also not a basket case. We have exceptionally talented people in our country. We've got fertile and mineral-rich soils. We've got buckets of splendor. But our problem is that Africa has been poorly led. There are many good people in our country that would like to contribute to building a fairer and more sustainable society. But they feel estranged from the political system. And they have lost faith in politicians and politics in general. Now, what does this all tell us? It is the old parties that have failed as a collective. I always say that the ANC and the DA is good for each other, but they're not good for our country because they both failed. So, new parties would not exist if the old ones were considered viable and robust. And as you know, I've got the unique experience of establishing political parties. Yes? Each one that has responded to a particular set of conditions that prevailed at the time. And as always, I have stood for the same values: universal justice, equality, including gender equality. After 30 years of democracy, I'm still the only female leader leading a political party represented in Parliament. It's an indictment on all of us. Now, the system of apartheid that we fought so hard against, to overcome not only just discrimination against people of color, it was also profoundly a struggle against patriarchy. But yet, today when we talk of healing the wounds of the past and transformation, we are fixated on a racial transformation while paying lip service to women and service of women in our country. We should fixate about both, not just the one. And I'm so proud to be working with women like this, women of integrity, with courage and credibility in building this new political home for all South Africans. Unite for Change is more than a new political party. It's a new inclusion direction. Consolidating our parties and resources is but the first step. In conclusion, the real hard work now is to persuade South Africans to join the quest for something better. Don't give up hope, South Africans. We should never give up hope. Come and join us in your quest for a better South Africa. Let us honor our past. Let us honor our liberation struggle. But now is the time for especially the young people to design your own future. You've got the opportunities. So stop complaining, design your own future, and fight for the own future that you want. Because I believe that a talent exists in our country. Really. We must just unite and harness it for change, and also to restore the legitimacy of our governments, and also restore the legitimacy of our public representative. I thank you very much for listening. May God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Auntie Pat. I call on the leader of Rise Mzansi, as well as the leader of Unite for Change, Songezo Zibi.
Thank you very much, Mabine. Good afternoon. Colleagues from the political parties, members of the Fourth Estate, and everyone who is here today. There is no longer an argument that our towns, cities, metros, municipalities, and communities are in deep trouble. They are either falling apart or have fallen apart in terms of governance, physical infrastructure, and the very fabric that keeps them together. People's sense of optimism has been destroyed. Therefore, it cannot be business as usual for any of us, and that includes those ordinary suffering South Africans outside this room. There is no time for long discussions, slogans, and gimmicks. Turning around the wasteland that is our country is going to need all of us. So today, I want to share just 5 things around which we must unite to solve the disaster we find ourselves in. The first is that the quality of elected leadership matters. The quality of elected leadership really matters. It requires 2 related changes in perspective. For political parties, it means accepting that no single political party has all the quality needed to turn South Africa around. For political parties, that is why around this table and in this room, we have accepted and decided to act upon this by inviting skilled, experienced, and capable South Africans to stand up and lead. Unite for Change should not belong to the people who lead the respective political parties. It should belong to South Africans. Now is not the time to massage and fuel egos. South Africa and its people need the best and most capable to make laws and policy decisions that irrevocably affect their lives. We are in this mess because the exact opposite is common, where people of questionable character, history, and capability have the reins of power and destroy institutions and people's lives. That is what we are learning at the Madlanga Commission, and that is what we learned at the Zondo Commission. This is the silent killer of our dreams, the wrong people in powerful positions. Similarly, if you are watching this and in your mind you believe there is a special breed of people called professional politicians who are going to save your life and your future, then you are thinking about this in the wrong way. You need to change your mindset and bank on yourself to play an active role and to lead. The mantra, as Musa said earlier, is that politics is too important to just leave to politicians. The second is that it is time for a new and younger generation of leaders. You cannot modernize with old people, with respect. Old ideas and the inflexibility that comes with wanting to do the same things that have been tried and failed on numerous occasions before. You can use their experience to not repeat old mistakes, but modernization needs new perspectives and new energy. So if you are a young person, you have an education that your family and your parents have fought hard for you to get, but are watching your future being destroyed by corrupt, arrogant, and incapable politicians, then it is time for you to step up and step forward. They will not hand over power voluntarily. You will have to rise and take power by all democratic means necessary. Third, let us advance social democratic ideas, where a modern, capable state at local and national government is a catalyst and enabler of equitable development. But this also means we stand and insist on certain values that must bind us together. These are freedom, justice, equality, and solidarity. It is these values upon which we must build a society that is fair, that does not deny or minimize the continuing effects of our colonial and apartheid pasts. These are the values that must drive our political and governance work, advancing justice, equality, and freedom by unifying South Africans under the banner of universal solidarity and non-racialism. Fourth, The days of thousands of workers going into factories in the morning are becoming a thing of the past. We must change our thinking about the economy we must build. This means anchoring education for all, technology-driven infrastructure development, leveraging resources such as our enormous and diverse tourism assets, the creative, care and climate economies, and the economies of ideas and knowledge. This is not to say mining, manufacturing, financial services, and other similar legacy industries are less important. They remain important, but we cannot build backwards into a past that will never come back, but a future we can all actively participate in together with the rest of the world. Getting the basics right matters. Rebuilding critical public institutions that have been destroyed and continue to be destroyed matters. Maintaining roads, traffic management, water and electrical systems matters to economic development and building public confidence in democracy. Having councillors, MPLs and MPs who know how to build and run a modern economy matters. So this takes me back to my initial call to action. Our fundamental failure is that we do not currently have enough capability in our politics. It sits outside. Today is an opportunity to start changing that, and ordinary South Africans should be front and center of our efforts. I also want to say today is the beginning of the journey, not the end. It's the beginning of the journey, not the end. It's important that as we proceed from here on, we are as inclusive as possible. We continue to consult and have discussions with other political parties, with other organizations, with people in our own structures, so that we can have an outcome that truly works, that we can all be proud of. I also want to say, as I close, that I'd like us to remember in our thoughts and prayers the South Africans who have gone missing in the flotilla to Gaza. These include Nkosi Zwelivelile Mandela, Zuki Swawana, Reyes Mula, Zahira Suma, Fatima Hendricks, and Kerry Shelva. And the reason I'm mentioning this is that the values that we spoke about must apply to people whose rights are being abused in South Africa, in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, in South Sudan, in Asia, in the United States, which is becoming a fascist state right now, in Gaza, and everywhere where we see injustice. Earlier we said it is false to say that we have to choose between values and competence. It's a false choice. It is possible for the two to live alongside each other. We must reject that proposition, that we must compromise with racism so that we can get competent people in government. As if the two are different sides of the city. They don't exist together at all. And we must be prepared to have the difficult conversation we refuse to have, that South Africa remains cruel to women, that South Africa's men hunt, beat up and kill South African women for sport. So it's important that we learn to walk and chew gum at the same time. It is false to say that we have to make a choice between these things. They have to go together. And finally, I want to say to all of us, to my fellow leaders, that we must see each other's roles as that of catalysts. South African politics has been centered for too long around the personalities of its leaders. All of us must be prepared to yield to a new generation of leaders. This invitation requires a genuine commitment to do that, beginning with ourselves. Otherwise, we will fail that commitment. And all of us must be prepared to serve where we are best suited. So we must not make the same conflation of contribution and position. The two are not the same. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Z. South Africa, these are your leaders. But as it has been stated, South Africa, you are the leaders that we want. It's not up to the 6 women and men seated here. It's up to you at home. If you're unhappy with the way your councillor operates, raise your hand. If you're unhappy with the state of your roads, raise your hand. If you believe that South Africa can be better, raise your hands and stand with Unite for Change. And we are Unite, not UFC. Unite for Change or Unite, not UFC. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm now going to open the floor to members of the Fourth Estate, the media. For your questions, you know how things operate. Just state your name, the media house that you represent, and shoot your question. There are colleagues who have microphones, Lerato and Danny. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, Karin, Danny.
Hi, do we need to stand up or
No,
can I just sit down?
be comfortable.
Thank you. Karin du Plessis from the Africa Report. I have a few questions, but I'll try and start with the most important ones. I just want to know the implication of this coalition for 2029. I mean, yeah, the parties are all in different arrangements in the government of national unity. Are you going to run as a party in 2029, or is 2026 going to be your test year? Also, have a question. You were talking. Everybody of the speakers were talking about youth and how important youth leadership is and youth representation, but none of those at the table there is a born free. And I think about half of our electorate, half of the voting age people now are born frees. How do you explain that? Do you have any idea of what your support would be in a place like Johannesburg, for example, which is where I suspect you might want to get most of your votes from? And my last question is, how important a role did funding play in this decision? Did any of your funders sort of say that it's easier to fund a campaign if you're united? Thank you.
Kamukhel. Are you ill? Kamukhel.
Good afternoon. My name is Kamaru Michela from IOM. No, I just, judging from your statements, this is confusing. I'm not sure who's the leader of the party. You have not stated who's the leader of the party. Maybe I've missed it. But then, at least we need to know who's going to lead this party, the Unite for Change. Can I please have maybe at least a comment on that? And then, Mr. Maimani, your position on the Israel-Palestine conflict has drawn both support and criticism. So, do you believe your stance could distance certain voters or weaken the new party's chances ahead of the local government elections? And then also, lastly, we have had too many parties promising a lot of things, service delivery and all that. How are you as leaders, or maybe as this party, going to do a difference to the citizens? Thank you.
Heidi.
Is this thing on? It's Heidi Jacques from ENCA. So 2 of my questions have been asked. It was around the funding and whether or not that had a role to play in the decision to merge. And then also around, are you going to have an elective conference? How is that going to work in terms of who will be the leader of this party? That will obviously only be in, 2029, I suppose. And then just the last question, did you consult your support base? Did all 3 of you consult your support base to figure out whether or not the people that voted for you in your individual entities actually support this merger, because obviously they need to be in support because they will have to eventually vote for you if they are in agreement. Did you consult at all? Did you go on the ground and ask whether they agree to this? Thank you.
We will close the first round there. You want to go first? All right.
Do I need to come there?
You can-
It'd probably be better. Yeah. Thank you very much for some of those questions. I think it's important to. I think before we get ahead of ourselves and have a discussion about 2029, we focus on 2026. It's a local government. It's a local government election. Part of what drove this conversation was, I want to use a practical example. I live in Dobsonville. Well, I vote in Dobsonville, Ward 48. It is effectively, if you put all the parties in Ward 48, and let's assume 5 parties contest the election, and each of the entities that are here get, for ease of numbers, 10 votes each, and another party comes in and gets 12. That party wins the ward, whereas the 3 parties together could have won the ward. Local government gives you the prospect of being able to put something on the ballot that works. And therefore, I think the questions about whether or not it's important that we work together collectively at local government, attract the best people, and the national leadership structure, composite of other parties that will come on board, will then guide the candidate selection process so as to achieve the view that says, for all of us as South Africans, how do we lead this entity that operates at local government? This seizes the idea, I remain leader of BOSA, and Tsonga remains leader of RISE, and Patricia remains leader of Good, as she will be a minister in that sense, and Patricia, etc., etc. The parties remain. I think that's a very important thing to distinguish so that we understand that we're working towards local government elections and where that goes. I think it's inconclusive to say that the entire leadership is all here. These are the founding. If you build it, they will come. And I want to invite young people. I agree with you. I think the question was put forward here. Young people must come on board. They must lead. We've got many. They must come in. We'll set up a structure that invites people to be able to do so. And I think we've wanted to, I always say when to somebody asks the question, did you explain it to your structures? I say to them, you know, as difficult as it is, I support Kaizer Chiefs, others support Pirates, others support Sundowns. But all Chiefs, Pirates players and Sundowns players go play for Bafana Bafana for a particular tournament. That tournament is local government elections. I want us to, I think your questions really, I believe in justice. I believe ultimately that we need to see a ceasefire in the Middle East. I think where there are terrorists, we need to condemn terror. I think we cannot deny the fact that hostages must be returned. And I think there's a global effort to achieve peace in that space. That's what we've stood for as BOSA. And as leader of BOSA, I've stood by that principle and will continue to do so. And I think even in the midst of the difficulty of all the situation, I still maintain that a two-state solution is possible in the long run. So I think I really want us to foreground and say, in the interest of justice, it must be, as we've spoken about, something that we are committed to everywhere in the world, whether that be in the DRC, whether it be in any other part of the world. Let us stand for justice. Let us make sure citizens have their rights respected. and let's uphold the rule of law. So I think that's been my position. It's been consistent, and I've stuck to it. I think those are the questions that were directed more specifically to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Certainly young people must lead. It's your time to lead. But to become a leader, you mustn't get appointed. You must work, and you must work damn hard. The leaders in front are bringing the experience to work together with young people. But young people must come forward and work hard. Nothing is going to be handed to you on a silver platter. You have to work yourself up. And so I agree, young leaders must take over. On whether we have consulted, the Good Party held our elective conference in November of 2023. And that time already, on the agenda of the national conference, the highest decision-making structure of Good, the discussion started to start engaging with like-minded parties that shares our values, our principles. And the Good Elective Conference amended the Constitution of Good to allow the leaders to continue to engage. So that is part of the mandate that we have received from the Good Conference in 2023. Even this morning, at 8 o'clock, we consulted with all of our 50 councillors across the country. We've consulted with our national leadership, because in this journey, it's very important that you must take your membership, your supporters, together with it. On the issue of who is the leader of the party, we have agreed that we're going to have a council of leaders, so that doesn't become an issue who must lead. But I think we further agreed that to have an elective conference towards the end of 2027 or 2028. Then the other one around Palestine, yes, we support the two-state solution. We must bring peace in that part of the world. We condemn the genocide that's taking place. But we are also saying that the hostages must be released so that you bring lasting peace. We pray for the safety of all of the activists across the world that sailed with food and medicine to go and help the people in Gaza, that they will return safely to all their respective countries. But the world cannot sit back anymore and watch women and children being killed on a daily basis. I think from South Africa's experience, we have learned through our own experience that negotiations and peace talks is better than violence and war. So the journey starts today to unite, to bring more young people on board so that they can lead us going into the future. But for me is that young people, you are not only the future, you are also the present. And we invite all the young people to come and unite with us to build unity for change in our country. I thank you.
I see he's not putting the platform on for me. I feel targeted. So I just want to to maybe deal substantively with the question of leadership. And I said here, this is the beginning of the process. I was serious. We are talking to other political parties. That cannot be settled by the three of us here. That's important. The second thing is that if we are serious about coming together with other organizations which may be active at local level, etc., we have to respect them and not settle those matters between the three of us. There has to be a constitution. There has to be a way in which internal structures are constituted in line with that constitution and so on. We cannot put the cart before the horse. And I also want to once again talk about the obsession in South Africa with the cult of personality of leaders. Because at the end of the day, this is what, in the end, has undermined political alternatives in the past. So none of us should be anxious to answer that and that question only before you've placed any proposition on the table, before you've done further consultations. Our respective organizations continue to exist with governance structures. The consultations with those structures must continue about each and every step that we take going forward. Each and every one. Including questions of when and how you build democratic structures with elective conferences. Patricia spoke about the fact that young leaders cannot be appointed. They have to be elected. So again, you cannot front-run the question. The question is, what processes are going to be in place in order to get there? Taking account of the length of time it takes to build structures. In the case of organizations, how do we work together in Johannesburg, where Good and BOSA, Good and Rise have got a presence, for instance? How do we get to candidates? What kind of structures do we have, etc., etc.? The last thing I want to address is that it is not possible for any political party that has been elected, either to a council, to parliament, or to the legislature, to dissolve before that mandate has expired. The law does not allow it. I will continue to stand up in parliament as a leader of Rise Mzansi and as an MP for Rise Mzansi until 2029. I know I'm getting technical, but this is important. Following that election, there is an audit by Parliament and the IEC of the support given to that political party in terms of constituency funding and so on. It must be fully accounted for by that political party, not anything that you have formed in between. This is why this is the beginning of the process, It's important. So I'm sorry I've taken a bit long, Mabini, with that question. It's important that because this is not usual, that we act in this way. The second thing that I want to say about youth leadership is that it's important that we create the space for people to step forward. That is why I said each of us have got to be prepared to step aside if an excellent leader becomes available, and that leader happens to be young. But we must also dispel the notion that things must be handed over to people. We must go and find them and hand over leadership to them. It just doesn't work like that. It cannot work like that. Lots of young people have stood up in different structures. Now is an opportunity for those young people to be similarly involved. Karin, the question about funding, it is a factor, but from a different perspective, by the way, not the one that you're placing on the table. And let me explain it. When you campaign in Ward 35, you can run 3 campaigns, or 4 or 5, or you can run 1 and maximize your resources. That is the logic around funding. It's a logic that identifies itself. Nobody has to come and tell us. I think we're fairly intelligent people around here. So nobody has to come and tell us to do that. And I'm saying that not suggesting that you are, but there is a misconception in South African politics that once you enter politics, you become a Dumbo and you get told what to do by whoever gives you money. So they've now instructed you to get back together. That is a theory of witchcraft. That has continued to hold South African politics back over the years. It's a theory of witchcraft. You're looking for umtagati all the time. And I'm saying this in address to people who are outside having those kind of questions. I know why you're asking, Karim, so this is not about you. But it's important to say there are people here with more than 2 brain cells who can say, well, you can have 7 campaigns in Buffalo City, or 1, against 3 other political parties. Then you can get PR councillors. Then you can be more competitive and represent South Africans in other way. It's logic. It also means for those South Africans who are inclined to support political parties financially, it simplifies the proposition. They don't get 5 people asking for a meeting on the same day or on the same week around the same campaign. So that's important. Consultations have taken place and continue. And I want to also emphasize that these matters are complex, even in discussions with other political parties, because political parties have internal structures. There are political parties that would have liked to be here today. They must still do further consultations internally. But time is moving. Similarly, within our own organizations, those consultations will continue about each and every step that we take that is critical going forward, so that we take as many people with us as possible. And we must admit, there will be people who say, I really, really don't like good, and therefore I'm going to vote for the ANC. That may happen, right? And people have got democratic rights in South Africa to make those kind of choices. I'm hoping that, Heidi, I have answered the question about elective conferences, unless you want me to address it more specifically. I can address it tonight on your show. Excuse me, people with shows. People with shows. I just want to, I think I have dealt with, the support you'll have in Johannesburg. We have not done the polling, Karim. Thanks.